You and I know that Canada is over $1 trillion in debt right now, but nothing fixes trillions of dollars worth of debt like a $10 billion spending program on green energy something or other to create 60,000 jobs, apparently headed up by Justin Trudeau and Catherine, where did all the money go, McKenna? Now, you may remember Catherine McKenna from her days as Climate Barbie, a nickname that I will not allow anymore. It is gross, it is Islamophobic, and she is now Infrastructure Barbie to everyone out there. Now, there's so much to go over here. Like, the first question everyone should ask is, how much of this $10 billion will go into the programs the Liberals are saying it's going to go into, and how much will just get lost by Catherine McKenna? Because at the current rate, we're looking at about maybe $4 to $5 billion is just going to go whoosh! Where'd it go? So maybe this is a $5 billion spending program that costs $10 billion, just because Catherine McKenna is on the project. Question number one. Now, point number two is this is like left-wing crazy voodoo economics with green nonsense tacked onto it. Let's dissect this. Okay. The green energy movement, which I have hated for years, not because I hate the environment, but because I love the environment. And green energy doesn't do anything for the environment. It's a slogan. It is a slogan by radical leftists who don't want to think about the environment and the sleazy politicians who want to take advantage of them. That's green energy. So allegedly, this is going to bring high-speed internet to rural areas. I'm fine with that. Get better internet connection, so you could watch my show more. Thank you, Justin Trudeau. But there's a lot of things that, it is like word salad gobbledygook that they won't be able to actually put concrete definitions around and do something, and the money's just going to go to the mob or out into the ether. I bet it's like sustainable, agricultural developments. Like once they start throwing these buzzwords around, that is where, once you see green energy, sustainable, blah, 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 that is the sinkhole in which Catherine McKenna will lose all this money. Now, I don't really think she's losing the money. I think she's using it to sort of, it's what the Liberals do. I think, billions of dollars is going to go to the mafia here. Billions of dollars is going to go towards corruption. Billions of dollars is going to go back into their pockets. And maybe a few $1 billion will get spent on Canadian infrastructure, hopefully. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So it's green, 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 green. Which is why you see Catherine McKenna has been promoted from environment minister to infrastructure minister. Because they've taken their radical environmentalist rhetoric. They don't have any radical environmental policy. This is my biggest contention with the environmentalist movement. There's a lot of them. One, they're anti-human beings, right? They want less people on the planet, and I think that's an evil ideology. But two, they don't do anything for the environment. They just don't. Okay? The reason I'm so uptight about this is because I'm from Ontario, okay? The land of Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne. And I know a lot of Canadians get turned off when you hear about Ontario and you're like, ugh, Toronto politics. And I get it. I totally get it because I live here. But I have to explain something to you, okay? What happens in Ontario will eventually affect the rest of Canada. And you might think that's BS. And I agree with you, okay? But it's the reality. The people who designed Kathleen Wynne and Dalton McGuinty's the Ontario Liberals' green energy strategy, some of them went to jail for the gas plant scandal. The ones that didn't go to jail went into Justin Trudeau's federal cabinet and are designing the federal green energy program that destroyed Ontario. Now, the secret about Ontario's green energy, well, not so secret, is it increased emissions. It increased them. It increased up. By starting to, mandate green energy, over-subsidizing, windmills. The biggest thing is they were regulating, gas plants. You had to use the renewable green energy resources that they had saved, but there's poor batteries, so all the sun and wind power had to be used on the grid. It was mandatory use, which means that the nuclear and natural gas production that we were doing, which would be stable, we had to increase it or decrease it depending on if it was too windy, not windy, too sunny, or not sunny enough. If it was one of those four factors, we had to modify our natural gas production. And that increased emissions because the best way to sort of produce natural gas or energy is really at a consistent rate, right? Cruise control saves the most energy. But that's not how Ontario was running. Ontario was running like this because of Kathleen Wynne and green energy. So the emissions went up. These idiots are now deciding the federal plan, and they're spending $10 billion to green, infrastructure green Catherine McKenna. Right? It's just word salad gobbledygook. They're saying they're going to create 60,000 jobs over 3 years. I doubt that. I doubt how many of those jobs will be contracted to Canadians. How many of them will be contracted to Chinese companies? That's a legitimate question to ask under the Liberals' administration. Like how many of those jobs will be China, and how much will be Canadian? Will we get a guarantee on the 60,000 jobs? Like, will those, like, again, none of this has ever been shown to work. Like, government make-work programs don't end recessions. Okay? We know this now. We could pretend that, the FDR's New Deal. Sorry, FDR prolonged the Depression by years. We've been through this before. Massive make-work government projects don't magically make everything feel better. But they can keep pushing them because you have octogenarians like Bernie Sanders keep espousing their virtues, and it's simple-minded thinking. Like, we'll pay lots of money to, build roads, then people want to build the roads and we have jobs. That's not how it works. Because you're taking the people's money and trying to allegedly funnel it back to the people. However, the system you're funneling it through is corrupt, and has many, many leaks. So this money's not all going to go back into it. You end up throwing more money down a well. So that's where we're at in Canada. We have a $10 billion green energy spending project in the middle of a time where we have massive rising debt. But don't worry, it's going to create however many jobs, who knows. And don't worry, Catherine McKenna, I know she has a tendency to misplace billions of dollars, but giving her $10 billion right now, I'm sure she won't misplace any of it, and I'm sure none of it will go to the mafia, because that would just be par for the course.